On January 1st, 2023, the city of Scottsdale, Arizona shut off the water supply to 500 homes in a neighboring retirement community. No warning countdown, no emergency alternative, just no water. Residents who had been paying $135 to fill their tanks watched that price skyrocket to $330 overnight. Retirees on fixed incomes had to choose between water and medication. And when they took it to court, the judge said Scottsdale was within its rights. That community is on today's list, but it is not even the worst one. We are counting down 11 Arizona towns that will wreck your retirement. And we have got a place where 645 people died from heat in a single year. A budget town where your odds of being a crime victim are literally 1 in 18. A so-called affordable paradise where summer electric bills eat $400 a month of your Social Security check. And a spot the state's own attorney general had to rescue from a landlord who cut the power during triple-digit heat. Like this video so the algorithm punishes whoever told you Arizona is a retirement paradise. Subscribe because this channel might be the only thing standing between you and a terrible real estate decision. Number 11, let's go. Number 11, Holbrook. Holbrook sits along Interstate 40 in Navajo County, about 3.5 hours northeast of Phoenix. It is one of those old Route 66 towns that still has the wigwam-shaped motel and the faded dinosaur statues out front. Charming in a postcard, terrifying in a crime report. According to Neighborhood Scout, Holbrook posts a crime rate of 55 per 1,000 residents. That translates to a 1 in 18 chance that you, personally, will be a victim of a crime in any given year. To put that in perspective, 97% of communities across the entire state of Arizona are safer than Holbrook. The town also carries one of the highest motor vehicle theft rates in the country, with odds of roughly 1 in 193. So if you park your RV outside that wigwam motel overnight, there is a genuine statistical chance it will not be there in the morning. The population hovers around 4,800. Grocery options are limited to a small local market and whatever the gas stations carry. The nearest Level 1 trauma center is over 2 hours away in Phoenix. If you have a cardiac event at 2 in the morning in Holbrook, your survival depends on a helicopter and favorable weather conditions. And in monsoon season, when dust storms and thunderstorms roll across the high desert plateau, favorable weather conditions are exactly what you do not get. For a retiree with any kind of chronic condition, that distance becomes a legitimate medical risk that compounds with every year you age. The summers are not as brutal as the low desert, with highs typically in the mid-90s, but winters bring genuine cold. Temperatures regularly drop below freezing from November through February, and snowfall is common. Retirees expecting year-round Arizona warmth will be surprised by the heating bills and icy roads, and the economy offers no cushion either. The town survives almost entirely on interstate traffic and tourists heading to the petrified forest. Once that traffic dries up for the season, so does most of the local spending. Part-time work for retirees is essentially non-existent outside of seasonal gas station and motel jobs. Number 10, Winslow. About 60 miles west of Holbrook on the same stretch of I-40 sits Winslow. You probably know the name from the Eagles song, standing on a corner in Winslow, Arizona. They even built a little park around it with a statue and a mural. Tourists stop, take photos, buy a magnet, and leave. The residents do not have that luxury. Winslow's violent crime rate runs approximately 813 per 100,000, which is roughly double the national average. Property crime clocks in around 3,635 per 100,000. And the poverty rate sits at 29.9%, making Winslow the fourth poorest city in the entire state of Arizona. Nearly 1 in 3 residents lives below the poverty line. The town has struggled economically since the railroad industry scaled back operations decades ago. There is no major employer anchoring the community. The downtown has a handful of businesses catering to Route 66 nostalgia, but once you step off that single tourist block, the reality sets in fast. Vacant storefronts, cracked infrastructure, limited medical services. For a retiree on a fixed income, moving to Winslow sounds like a bargain on paper. Median home prices sit well below the state average, but cheap housing in a town with double the national violent crime rate and almost no healthcare infrastructure is not a deal. It is a trap with a guitar statue out front. Number 9, San Luis. Down in the far southwestern corner of Arizona, pressed right against the Mexican border, sits San Luis. It is about 25 miles south of Yuma, and more than 3 hours from both Phoenix and Tucson by car. In the summer months, temperatures in San Luis routinely blow past 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and there is no coastal breeze, no mountain elevation, and no shade canopy to soften the blow. Just flat, scorched desert in every direction. Healthcare access is one of the biggest concerns for retirees considering San Luis. The town has basic medical facilities, but anything beyond a standard checkup means driving to Yuma or, in many cases, crossing the border into Mexico. A significant number of residents already do this for dental work, prescription medications, and specialist visits because the local options simply are not there. Pharmacy access is limited. Specialist availability is almost non-existent, and if you need emergency surgery or advanced cardiac care, you are looking at a Yuma hospital 20 miles north or a Phoenix facility 3 hours away. For a 70-year-old retiree with a heart condition, San Luis is functionally a medical desert with a 110-degree parking lot on top. The isolation compounds everything. San Luis is not on the way to anywhere. There is no major tourism draw pulling in outside investment. The town exists primarily as a border community, and while there is nothing wrong with that, it does mean the infrastructure caters to a cross-border economy rather than to American retirees expecting suburban-level services. Entertainment options are thin, cultural amenities are sparse, and the nearest major airport is in Yuma, which itself only offers limited regional connections. If you want to fly anywhere for the holidays, you are driving to Phoenix or San Diego first. Number 8. Eloy. Eloy sits along the I-10 corridor in Pinal County, about halfway between Phoenix and Tucson. On a map, it looks perfectly positioned. In reality, it is perfectly positioned for dust storms, drug trafficking, and violent crime. Neighborhood Scout flags Eloy's violent crime rate as one of the highest in the nation, running approximately 770 per 100,000. The town also ranks as the 5th poorest city in Arizona with a poverty rate of 23.1%. The median household income sits well below both the state and national averages, and the local economy offers very little in the way of part-time work or supplemental income for retirees trying to stretch a fixed budget. Then there is the dust. Eloy sits in the heart of Arizona's Hey Boob corridor. Pinal County's stretch of I-10 is notorious for massive dust storms that drop visibility to near zero and cause deadly multi-vehicle pileups. In recent years, the National Weather Service has issued multiple significant dust advisories for this exact corridor, and the area sees recurring events that shut down the interstate entirely. These are not gentle breezes carrying a little sand. Haboobs in Pinal County can reach thousands of feet into the air, turning the sky brown and reducing visibility to less than a quarter mile within minutes. For retirees with respiratory conditions like COPD or asthma, the combination of fine desert particulate and seasonal hay boobs makes Eloy genuinely dangerous on an air quality basis alone. Valley fever, caused by a soil-dwelling fungus endemic to the region, is another concern for anyone spending years breathing Pinal County air, though the link between individual dust storms and infection spikes remains scientifically debated. Stack the violent crime rate on top, add the poverty-driven infrastructure neglect, and you have a town that looks affordable right up until it costs you something money cannot fix. Number 7. Page. Page sits in a far northern Arizona near the Utah border, surrounded by some of the most visually stunning landscape in the American Southwest. Lake Powell, Antelope Canyon, Horseshoe Bend, millions of tourists visit every year, and the scenery is legitimately breathtaking. The crime rate is also breathtaking, just in a different way. Page posts the highest property crime rate in the state of Arizona at roughly 5,200 per 100,000 residents. That is not a misprint. The tourism economy that keeps the town alive also floods it with transient visitors, seasonal workers, and the kind of opportunistic property crime that follows high-traffic tourist destinations everywhere. Car break-ins, theft from rental properties, and package theft are all elevated well above what you would expect in a town of only 7,500 people. And the remoteness is no joke. Page is a 5-hour drive from Phoenix and roughly 3 hours from Flagstaff. The nearest major hospital with advanced surgical capabilities is in Flagstaff, about 2.5 hours south on a 2-lane highway that cuts through the Navajo Nation. If you need a cardiologist, an oncologist, or emergency neurosurgery, you are looking at either a very long ambulance ride or a medical helicopter, and neither option is cheap or guaranteed in bad weather. During monsoon season, that same highway floods at low water crossings, occasionally cutting off the route entirely. The town itself was originally built to house workers constructing the Glen Canyon Dam in the 1950s and 60s. It was never designed as a retirement destination. The infrastructure reflects that origin. Services cater to tourists passing through, not to aging residents who need reliable year-round access to pharmacies, specialists, and emergency care, the scenery is real. The Instagram photos do not lie about that part, but the property crime statistics are just as real, and the distance from advanced medical care makes Page a beautiful place to visit and a genuinely risky place to retire. Number 6. Quartzsite. Quartzsite is a strange place. From October through March, this tiny desert town about 125 miles west of Phoenix transforms into one of the largest gathering spots for RV snowbirds in the country. The population swells from roughly 2,400 year-round residents to as many as 1.5 million winter visitors. Gem shows, swap meets, and RV rallies take over the landscape. It feels like a giant retirement festival. Then summer arrives and it all makes sense. Summer highs in Quartzsite routinely reach 120 degrees Fahrenheit. The all-time record hit 122 on July 28, 1995. The town is essentially uninhabitable without functioning air conditioning from May through September. And for retirees on fixed incomes, the electricity bill alone can eat $300 to $500 a month during peak summer. That is not an exaggeration. Arizona utilities charge 2 to 3 times the normal rate during afternoon peak hours, and SRP layers on a demand charge that can add $45 to $80 from a single hot afternoon. The 2020 census pegged Quartzsite's median age at 67.4 years. This is a town almost entirely made up of retirees. And in 2025, the Arizona Attorney General issued a cease and desist order after the owners of the RV Pit Stop Park cut electrical power to their residents during triple-digit heat. Senior citizens living in RVs with no air conditioning in a place where the outside temperature can kill you. The state literally had to step in and force the power back on. Grocery access is limited. Pharmacy options are thin. The nearest hospital with any real capacity is in Parker or Yuma, and advanced trauma care means a helicopter to Phoenix. For the winter months, Quartzsite is a fun seasonal experience. For year-round retirement, it is a survival test with a gem show attached. If you are enjoying this deep dive into Arizona's retirement danger zones, do this channel a favor. Hit subscribe and drop a like on this video. We cover the best and worst places to live, retire, and invest in real estate across America, and we do it without the sugarcoating. New videos drop regularly, and trust me, you do not want to miss the next one. Now, where were we? Right! Things are about to get darker. Number 5. Kingman. Kingman sits in Mojave County along Interstate 40 in northwestern Arizona. It is another one of those Route 66 towns, except this one comes with a crime rate of 37 per 1,000 residents. That gives you roughly a 1 in 27 chance of becoming a crime victim in any given year. The motor vehicle theft rate is one of the highest in the country at approximately 1 in 200. City data reports 227 registered sex offenders in Kingman, which works out to a ratio of roughly 1 sex offender for every 127 residents. And according to multiple crime tracking sources, overall crime in Kingman jumped 20% between 2023 and 2024. Kingman also sits along one of the primary drug trafficking corridors connecting the western border with Las Vegas and points north. Mojave County law enforcement has dealt with a persistent methamphetamine problem for years, and the effects ripple through property crime, theft, and quality of life for residents across the county. The I-40 and US 93 interchange at Kingman makes it a natural waypoint for long-haul transport of all kinds, and not all of it shows up on a shipping manifest. The summer heat is another factor that gets overlooked. Kingman sits at a higher elevation than Phoenix, around 3,300 feet, so it does not hit the extreme 115-degree readings of the low desert. But July averages still push well into the triple digits, and the arid climate means air conditioning is mandatory from May through September. Summer electric bills for a standard home routinely clear $250 to $350 a month. Healthcare options are limited to the Kingman Regional Medical Center, a smaller facility without Level 1 or Level 2 trauma capabilities. For anything serious, you are headed to Las Vegas, which is about 100 miles northwest, or Phoenix, which is almost 200 miles southeast. Neither is a quick trip, and both require traversing long stretches of desert highway where cell coverage drops and emergency response times stretch. The homes are cheap, the cost of living is low, and the reasons for both become very clear once you start reading the data. Number 4. Globe. Globe sits about 90 miles east of Phoenix in the Tonto National Forest, surrounded by copper mine tailings and mountain scenery. It was a boomtown in the late 1800s when copper was king. The mines drew thousands of workers, built the infrastructure, funded the schools, and defined the entire local economy for over a century. The copper is mostly gone now. The crime stayed. Neighborhood Scout reports Globe's property crime rate at approximately 5,400 per 100,000. That means 99% of communities in Arizona are statistically safer than Globe. This is a former mining town where property crime runs at nearly 3 times the national average, and the local police department operates on a budget that reflects a shrinking tax base rather than a growing one. The healthcare situation makes it worse. Globe's hospital, Cobre Valley Regional Medical Center, is a 25-bed critical access facility. It handles basic emergencies, but anything involving cardiac intervention, stroke treatment, neurosurgery, or complex trauma means a 90-plus minute drive to Phoenix through the winding mountain roads of US 60. In winter, those roads can close due to ice or rock slides. There are almost no local cardiologists, oncologists, or geriatric specialists. For a retiree over 70, Globe is a place where a Tuesday afternoon heart attack becomes a life or death race against geography and weather. The local economy has never fully recovered from the mining decline. The Freeport-McMoran operations in nearby Miami still employ some residents, but the broader economic picture remains depressed. Median household incomes are low, part-time job opportunities for retirees are scarce, and the town's tax base struggles to fund the kind of infrastructure and services that aging populations rely on. Roads, street lighting, emergency response times, senior centers. All of it runs on a budget that Copper built and Copper took away. Globe is beautiful. The scenery is real. The Salt River Canyon Drive is one of the prettiest in Arizona. And absolutely none of that matters when you are 80 minutes from a trauma surgeon and living in a town where property crime ranks in the top 1% statewide. Number 3, Bullhead City. Bullhead City sits on the Colorado River in Mojave County, directly across the water from Laughlin, Nevada. The setting sounds almost tropical. River views, casino entertainment, affordable homes. Retirees have been moving here for decades based on exactly that pitch. Then summer arrives and the thermometer does not stop climbing until it hits 120 degrees. Bullhead City is one of the hottest cities in Arizona, and that is saying something in a state where Maricopa County alone recorded 645 heat-related deaths in 2023. Nearly 2/3 of those victims were over 50. The county's own public health report found that among indoor heat deaths where an air conditioning unit was present, the unit was non-functioning in 85% of cases. For retirees in Bullhead City, where summer stretches for 5 brutal months, a broken AC unit stops being a maintenance problem and starts being a survival situation. And unlike Phoenix or Tucson, Bullhead City does not have the density of cooling centers, urgent care clinics, or emergency infrastructure to catch you when the heat wins. The Colorado River right outside your window does nothing to cool the air either. Bullhead City regularly competes with Lake Havasu City and Quartzsite for the hottest daily reading in the state. July averages sit around 113 degrees, and overnight lows barely dip below 90. That means your air conditioner runs essentially 24 hours a day from May through September, and your summer electric bills reflect it. And the crime tracks with the heat. The 2024 FBI data shows Bullhead City posting 455 violent crimes and 2,192 property crimes per 100,000 residents, both well above state and national averages. The proximity to Laughlin's casinos brings a steady flow of transient visitors, and with that comes the property crime, vehicle theft, and opportunistic fraud that follows gambling corridors everywhere. Neighborhood Scout flags Bullhead City's motor vehicle theft rate at roughly 1 in 370, which is one of the highest in the nation. The poverty rate sits around 17.3%. Healthcare options are limited, with no Level 1 or Level 2 trauma center anywhere in Mojave County. For anything beyond basic emergency care, residents face a long drive to Las Vegas, which is about 100 miles north, or an even longer haul to Phoenix. Bullhead City offers river views and casino proximity. What it does not offer is the medical infrastructure, public safety, or climate survivability that a 70-year-old on blood pressure medication actually needs to get through an Arizona summer alive. Number 2, and this is the one we opened the video with, Rio Verde Foothills. Rio Verde Foothills is an unincorporated community in Maricopa County, northeast of Scottsdale. It lacks city status, a town charter, a mayor, a city council, and most critically, a municipal water system. And on January 1st, 2023, everybody who lived there found out exactly what that means. For years, roughly 500 homes in Rio Verde Foothills depended entirely on hauled water purchased from the city of Scottsdale. Trucks would fill up at Scottsdale's water facilities, drive out to Rio Verde, and deliver water to residential storage tanks. It worked, until it did not. Scottsdale had been warning residents since 2016 that the hauled water arrangement was temporary and unsustainable. The city's drought management plan prioritized water for its own residents, and as the Colorado River crisis deepened and Lake Mead dropped below 32% capacity, Scottsdale made the call. On New Year's Day 2023, they cut it off. No transition period, no emergency backup, just done. The impact was immediate and brutal. Resident Karen Nabity told reporters she had been paying about $135 for 3,000 gallons of hauled water before the cutoff. After January 1st, private haulers jacked the price to $330 for the same amount. That is roughly $7,920 a year just for water, an increase of about $5,040 annually. For a retiree living on a single Social Security check, that is not a rate hike, that is financial destruction. Residents took the fight to court. A Maricopa County Judge Joan Sinclair refused to compel Scottsdale to resume service, finding no irreparable harm. No irreparable harm. Hundreds of seniors sitting in desert homes with no running water in one of the hottest counties in America, and the court said there was no irreparable harm. Governor Katie Hobbs eventually signed a bill resolving the crisis on June 19, 2023, nearly 6 months after the shutoff. But the damage was done. Property values cratered. Residents who had sunk their retirement savings into Rio Verde homes watched their equity evaporate alongside their water supply. This is the cautionary tale that should be stapled to the front of every Arizona retirement brochure. Unincorporated communities look cheap because they lack the municipal infrastructure that incorporated cities provide. No city water, no city sewer, no city council to call when something goes wrong. You save money on the purchase price and then you spend the rest of your retirement discovering exactly why it was so cheap. If this story made you rethink your Arizona shortlist, you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel was built for. We are here every week exposing the real truth about retirement destinations, real estate traps, and budget living across America. Hit subscribe so you do not miss the next one. And now, number one, Buckeye. This one is going to surprise people because Buckeye looks nothing like the other towns on this list. You will not find crumbling storefronts, abandoned mine shafts, or dusty border crossings here. Buckeye is one of the fastest growing cities in America. Over 150,000 people live there now, with new subdivisions going up every month. Master-planned communities, golf courses, shopping centers, brand new schools. On the surface, it looks like the Arizona dream. Underneath the surface is where the problem lives, and the problem is water. In June 2023, the Arizona Department of Water Resources dropped a bombshell. Their updated hydrological model revealed a 4% shortfall in the Phoenix Active Management Area's 100-year assured water supply. That is a technical way of saying the math no longer works. There's not enough guaranteed groundwater to support the development that has already been approved, let alone what is still being built. The immediate consequence was that ADWR halted new groundwater only housing approvals in parts of Buckeye, Queen Creek, and Goodyear. Developers who had planned thousands of new homes were suddenly frozen. The state was effectively admitting that it had allowed construction in areas where the water to support those homes might not exist in 50 years. In July 2025, ADWR approved the first ever rural-to-urban water transfer from the Harquahala Basin, granting Buckeye up to 5,926 acre-feet per year, enough for roughly 17,000 homes over a 110-year period. Politicians celebrated. Headlines called it a breakthrough, but here's what the headlines left out. Sarah Porter, director of ASU's Cayul Center for Water Policy, pointed out that the total withdrawal amount represents a massive draw from a basin where less than 2% of annual rainfall actually replenishes the groundwater. She cautioned that increasingly, experts are recognizing that other water supplies need to be found. State Senate Minority Leader Priya Sundareshan was more blunt, saying she does not think it solves anyone's problems on a permanent basis. And there is an even more immediate issue. The pipelines to deliver that water have not been built yet. The permits have not been issued. The infrastructure does not exist. The water transfer was approved on paper, but no water is flowing from Harquahala to Buckeye right now. Residents of those brand new subdivisions are still relying on groundwater that the state itself has said is insufficient. Meanwhile, the Colorado River, which supplies a huge portion of Arizona's water through the Central Arizona Project, remains under a Tier 1 shortage. As of April 2026, Lake Mead sat at roughly 32% capacity and Lake Powell at 24%. The CAPI allocation has already been cut by 512,000 acre-feet, about 30% of its normal supply. So why is Buckeye number one on this list? Because it is the town where the largest number of retirees are making the biggest mistake right now. Globe and Holbrook are cautionary tales about towns that already declined. Rio Verde Foothills is a warning about what happens when infrastructure fails. But Buckeye is the one where hundreds of new retirees are signing 30-year mortgages every month in a city whose water supply exists mostly in a PowerPoint presentation. Calling this a prediction of doom would be unfair. What it actually is a documentation of risk. The water might come, the pipelines might get built, the Colorado River might recover, but if you are 65 years old and buying a home in Buckeye today, you are betting your retirement on a series of events that have not happened yet, and that Arizona's own water policy experts describe as insufficient. That is a bet worth understanding before you sign. And that is the list. 11 Arizona towns that look like retirement bargains until you read the fine print. And there is one more thing worth knowing before you go. In 2023, Arizona ranked number one in the entire country for elder fraud complaints per capita, with 289 complaints for every 100,000 seniors. That was a 36% jump from the year before. The FBI reported that more than two-thirds of cryptocurrency ATM fraud victims were over 60 years old, and Arizonans lost over $177 million to those scams in 2024 alone. Cheap towns with aging populations and limited law enforcement are exactly where these operations thrive. Arizona can absolutely be a great place to retire. The question every retiree needs to answer is whether the specific town they are considering has the water, the healthcare, the safety, and the infrastructure to support them for the next 20 or 30 years. Because the desert does not forgive bad planning, and neither does a fixed income. Thanks for watching. If this video saved you from making a six-figure mistake, the least you can do is hit that like button. We will see you in the next one.